Save the King!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Pod Save the King. What a week it's been. We have news of the King's historic address to the nation to celebrate the 100th birthday of our late Queen Elizabeth II. We saw the royals gather en masse for the first time since the former Prince Andrew's arrest. Also, we've had news of Harry and Meghan's tour of Australia, tours being threatened by trolls threatening to infiltrate the sessions. We're going to have a look ahead to the King and Queen's US tour as well. And of course, we will be talking about Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and playing the game of Where is Sarah Ferguson, which seems to be quite a staple of podcasts these days. So hello, I'm your host Russell Myers, the royal editor of the Daily Mirror, and I'm joined as ever by Jennifer Newton, who has some exciting news of a little trip she's been on this week, seeing the Queen's exhibition of her garments, her dresses, some of her personal items that is going to be on display at Buckingham Palace from April to October, if you can get down to it. So what should we start with, Jen? I suppose we should start with top of the tree, which is the news that we've revealed today, which is the King's address to the nation. It is going to be televised, broadcast on social media. It's going to be happening on April the 21st to celebrate and commemorate Queen Elizabeth's 100th birthday. Of course, she passed away in 2022 at the age of 96. We'll certainly expect it'll be full of commemorations and a celebration of her life, talking about, not only her legacy as a monarch, but also as head of the family. And I think we saw that, didn't we, when he was King Charles made his first address to the nation when he took the throne. It was very, very emotional. He spoke about the influence his mother had on his life, not only him, but his siblings as well, and the younger generations, mentioning the Prince and Princess of Wales, mentioned Harry and Meghan as well, as they sought to strike a new life out in the United States. But of course, a lot has happened since then. We've had, as we just mentioned, the arrest of, in quotes, the Queen's favourite son, the former Prince Andrew. There have been controversies in recent weeks about the King's upcoming state visit. The Queen I suppose she wouldn't have batted an eyelid, would she? Because she certainly hosted a lot of controversial figures at Buckingham Palace and went on a few trips herself. So it's interesting to sort of dive into that, which we will do later. But what do you think about the upcoming commemorations for the Queen? Do you think I suppose we spoke about last year about the public having a bit of royal fatigue, but it probably seems like a bit of distance has passed since we had the Platinum Jubilee, and then obviously the Queen's passing, and then the coronation. I probably think this is a good opportunity to sort of celebrate the royal family and the Queen's legacy.
Yeah, I do as well. And I think, like you say, enough time has passed and 100 years. I think it's a good time not to kind of dwell on the past and that sort of thing, but celebrate her legacy and how the royal family are using that moving forward. Certainly Charles, he seems to be doing that in his devotion to his work, like what his mother did all those years ago. So yeah, I think it looks like it's going to be more of a celebration and a celebration of her life and her legacy, which they're carrying on.
Yeah, definitely. That was definitely the mood music this week from Buckingham Palace when I put the story to them that we're going to be having some new details of some events that the royal family are going to be taking part in. I can probably give you a sneak preview if you're listening to this on Thursday. It is, we're going to start off with the King and Queen coming down from Scotland, which is where they are at the moment. They've been residing at Birk Hall, having a bit of an Easter break. They're going to be making their way back down to London on the Queen's birthday, the April 21st. They are going to be hosting a special reception for, I suppose, just under 100 guests, which the King has handpicked himself. They're going to be representatives of the late Queen's charities and her organisations that she was patron of, that she had an association with throughout her life. Also, we expect the Prince and Princess of Wales will be at that reception, the Princess Royal, Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh as well. So it is very, very much a family affair. And while the King will be making this address, I definitely think that the family will be getting involved. I don't think we'll see any specific sort of speeches from Prince William, but we may see something on social media. It is a great time for an anniversary, and certainly the people I was speaking to at Buckingham Palace said it isn't a cause for a somber event. Of course, we will mark the passing of Her late Majesty, but it is very much with a celebratory tone. We want to be able to explore, excuse me, we want to be able to explore all the great things that she did in her life. Talk about the Commonwealth. The King's address will be, of course, beamed around the world, talking about the family of nations, talking about her army service, all the associations that she had such a key role in throughout her 70 years on the throne as well. And talking of family affairs, I think that is absolutely the order of the day at the moment, because while the backdrop of Andrew's arrest is still continuing in the background, of course, there are investigations by police forces and different authorities in the UK and the US. I saw that Ro Khanna, the Democratic congressman, was speaking again this week, saying how the king should be meeting some of Epstein's victims whilst on his tour of the US. Buckingham Palace have previously said that it's very difficult because there are ongoing police investigations. They wouldn't want to prejudice any of those. I can't see that that is going to happen. But meanwhile, while that is going on in the background, certainly the order of the day is to put a family, put family unity on show. And we saw that at Easter, because the King and Queen were leading the family, the gathering at Windsor Castle en masse on Easter Sunday. And I think that this provided the snapshot of a modern monarchy, didn't it? Because it had not only the King and Queen, but we saw a now very tall Prince George and Princess Charlotte, the King engaging with them. We also saw the sign of a blended family, didn't we? Because Peter Phillips' fiancée, Harriet Sperling, was there with her 13-year-old daughter. And Mr. Phillips had his two teenage daughters, Savannah and Isla, there as well. What did you think of the scenes of Easter? Is this something that the royal family can keep on doing to sort of get away from the negativity at the moment?
Well, I think that's one way they can do that. And if I think back to Easter last year, 2025, when you had Andrew and Fergie come in and Beatrice and Eugenie were there, it was
Bounding down the hill.
yeah, exactly. It was like almost a totally different world this year, with William and Kate there for the first time. They'd been there for 3 years. Obviously, Kate couldn't go 2024 because of her illness, and then they decided to be on a family holiday last year. So yeah, it was very different, and it was almost like, maybe this is too strong of a word, but like a soft relaunch for the royal family. I felt, like we're going to
Yes,
put
I
this
think
behind us. What has happened in the first few months of the year, new quarter of the year, this is the best way to start it off.
Yeah, I think that's right. It is the first time we've seen them gathering en masse since Christmas, and there were some other, of course, notable exceptions. We obviously didn't see Andrew there. There was no Sarah Ferguson. We'll come on to her a little bit later, and also Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. They were said to have made alternative arrangements with the blessing of the king. Now, read into that what you will, whether they had made the decision, whether it was said to them to not attend. I think we said last week that it would be very interesting to see them at Royal Ascot. Whether they will be in the carriage procession, I dare say they won't be, but whether they'll be in the royal box with other members of the family, whether they will indeed attend when the king and queen are there. I think that will tell you a lot as well about how well that the king wants to sort of assimilate them back into the family fold. I mean, it's difficult because while there was a lot of controversy surrounding their parents, there was a lot of sympathy for them. But them being named in the Epstein files, of course, no admission or placing of guilt on them, of course, by being named in the Epstein files. There is that sort of uncomfortable truth that they did indeed go to visit Jeffrey Epstein when they were adults. And I think that this is going to be something that have to be explored within the palace, and certainly the king, of how comfortable he feels in sort of taking that association with his nieces further. It seems quite a difficult position to be in when you don't know the full story. And of course, we've been given different accounts by Andrew and Sarah previously. There are still millions of documents that haven't been released. There is still pressure on both sides of the Atlantic for Andrew to speak to investigators. So I suppose we will have to wait and see. Interesting that the Duke of Edinburgh was there with his son, Earl of Wessex. James was there. Lady Louise was not. Apparently, she is studying, and the Duchess of Edinburgh was feeling a little under the weather at the moment. But I think you're right. It's a good opportunity to put the royal family's best foot forward, look at the future, and of course look forward to not only the celebrations of the late Queen's birthday, which I think is not only going to encompass the King's speech, but the new monument that we're going to see. Hopefully, the final designs on or around that date as well, that will be appearing in St James's Park very, very soon. But also a chance to look forward to the King's state visit, because that has been, it's been widely talked about. We've seen Trump sort of talking about his great friendship with the King, but of course, Trump is in the global news media by the minute at the moment because of the war in the Middle East. I mean, what sort of pitfalls do you see for the King and Queen on this trip?
Well, I think we can now say, can't we, that it's actually going ahead now. It's actually being confirmed by the palace that last
Well,
week.
it's the worst kept secret ever,
The
wasn't
worst
it? I
kept
mean, it's
secret ever.
ridiculous.
It really was. And I thought it was incredible, really, that this statement from the palace came that this trip was going ahead literally as Trump was having another dig at Keir Starmer and calling our Navy, what did he call our aircraft carriers?
Well,
Toys?
toys, and he said that they're
Toys.
the big the Scott had success. They were the big bad Royal Navy. Of course, we've had Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, I think, saying that he's rather annoyed at Trump over the last 24 hours, saying that he's sick to death of the sort of flip flopping or the pressure of NATO. I mean, it is a very delicate political and diplomatic situation at the moment. But this is of course what the royals are there for, isn't it? I mean, we were looking through the files of sort of controversial state visits in the past, and you had the late Queen and Prince Philip welcoming Robert Mugabe, President Putin, President Xi Jinping throughout the years. The list is endless of controversial, if you want to put it that way, state visits in the past. And the royals have to sort of rise above that. They are there all hosting on the behest of the British government of the day. And this is, of course, what the British government want them to go and do. They want them to try and smooth over relations, which seem to be sort of melting before our eyes. But we're certainly not alone in that, because of Trump's wrath with anybody who's
Yeah.
stepping or perceived to be stepping out of line. But I mean, what can we expect? We know that there is going to be a trip to Washington. There is going to be a state dinner. Trump will no doubt make speeches. He'll probably, I mean, go off on one talking about the war. And I mean, will he criticize the government with the King sitting there? I mean, that would be pretty awkward.
I mean, he could do. It's quite funny when you think back to the state visit a few months ago that was at Windsor when he came to Windsor Castle. And a lot of people said, oh, he was quite, he played by the book. He didn't go off piste. He was
Very
quite, yeah,
reserved,
he
yeah.
was quite reserved. But will it be different this time when he's on his home turf? Will he be more unpredictable, shall we say?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's got certainly NATO leaders in his sights talking about abandoning the NATO pact, criticizing anyone who didn't want to get involved in the war with Iran. I mean, this is happening by the minute, it seems, at the moment. I think that certainly the King will, of course, be diplomatic, talking about the ties between two nations. There is another trip, another visit to New York. The King and Queen will be visiting, we understand, the 9/11 memorial. Of course, that'd be very, very somber. So many victims of so many nationalities, including Brits, in that disaster as well. When he returns to Washington for the final farewell before going to Bermuda, I think that will, of course, be rolling out the red carpet. It's a military farewell. Will Trump be there? Will he be making another huge speech? I think at this stage anything could happen, and certainly there will be some nervousness in the palace as to what the tone of Trump's speech will be. I don't necessarily think it will be all welcoming. No doubt he will talk about the great ties and the special relationship, but it will be current, because that is what Trump seems to do whenever he has a microphone in front of him. But you would expect, obviously, the King and Queen to sort of tread this diplomatic tightrope very, very carefully.
Yeah, I think so. And like we've said before, it's the king's job, so he'll I'm sure he can get on with it. I mean, we don't really know whether he would want to do this or not, but it's one of those things. Sometimes you don't want to get out of bed on a morning and go to work, but you do. So not
Well,
not not
it's
me.
an
I'm not
interesting one
like that,
because
but yeah, some people
yeah,
are.
no, no,
Yeah.
you're talking about me. I think interesting for Charles because you look at the sort of pace that he's running at the moment. You look at the incoming state visits. You look at the schedule that he's running, the international program that he's got this year, US tour. Going to Bermuda, going to Antigua later on in the year. We expect for Chogham. I would imagine that will encompass some form of other Caribbean nation as well. No doubt there'll be more incoming state visits later on in the year, and the commemorations over the anniversary. You're talking about big historic events, and America has to be on that list. If you're talking about underscoring your legacy, there is no point shying away from this. He is 77 years old. He is living with cancer. It is very, very structured in working out his legacy in a shorter amount of time and being very, very I suppose ahead of the curve in terms of trying to plan, trying to work out how he wants to cement that legacy and be remembered. So America, of course, will be top of that list. Is exactly why there was a second unprecedented state visit for Trump as well that the King was happy to host. So let's look forward to it. We'll no doubt bring you some more details. I know that there's going to be more details released later on today as well. So hopefully we'll catch up next week about the late Queen's commemorations, and we will be bringing you some more details next week on the King and Queen's tour of the US. Now, while we're on tours, we might as well dive straight into the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's visit to Australia. There has been a leak, it seems. So the Sussex's team put out some details about the structure of the events, and it was all embargoed until they arrive. I think they arrive on the 14th. The five-star hotel wellness retreat is from the 17th to the 19th, but Harry and Meghan are there a few days before. Well, I mean, what can we expect? And the mood I get when I'm talking to Australian broadcasters and colleagues in Australia is there is kind of not necessarily, I suppose, apathy. There is excitement. We have, members of the royal family. They're still members of the royal family. But if you're looking at it through the prism of the 2018 tour, it's certainly not going to hit those heights. But one of the things, and when I was there, I remember there was hundreds, if not thousands, of people outside on the streets and doing walkabouts. And when they came down the stairs of the Sydney Opera House, it was like two rock stars. Now, there aren't any planned walkabouts on this tour. I mean, why do we think that is? Is that being overly cautious? Is there? I mean, if you are one of our Australian listeners, please do get in touch. Tell us if you are looking forward to this. We do know that Meghan's wellness retreat has sold out. Big money. I don't think it's all going to her pocket. There are some going to charitable funds as well. It is with her Best Life podcast at five-star hotel in Coogee Beach, beautiful part of the world. But and we'll get onto that sort of the controversy of that in a minute. But has the world fallen out with Harry and Meghan? I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but what can we expect from this visit?
Well, it seems the first part of their trip to Australia is mainly going to be them going to visit charities and things that they, you know, are concerned with their charity work. So concerning the military community, mental health, that sort of thing, women's issues. So it does have all the hallmarks of a royal tour, and maybe it does seem like their last trip to Australia, but what's different about it is they're not going to be there to meet the public. And I think that's what is a bit, I don't know, that's what was interesting to me, because when I think of that tour that you were on in, what was it, 2018, 8 years ago now,
2018.
that's, yeah, 2018, that's what you think of, all those crowds that were out around the Sydney Opera House. And is it because people don't want to meet them? Is it because of security? And we're told that the trip has been funded for privately. It's not going to cost the Australian taxpayer anything. So that if that's the case, they can't have, the police or whoever it would be providing their security, they've got to provide their own. So maybe they just think, well, we can't, afford this. We've just got to go in and out to these
Yeah,
places without any.
there's not too much to moan about if the public aren't paying for it. I mean,
No.
just reading through some of the leaked details that Mail Online have published yesterday, there will be Harry and Meghan will be making joint appearances focusing on veterans and mental health, including a visit to a children's hospital and an Invictus Australia event on Sydney Harbour. That will no doubt be great. I mean, Invictus is a worldwide organisation, still really, really popular throughout the globe. It had a great reception when we were there for 2018 for the Invictus Games. This I found very interesting, that Meghan will undertake a solo visit to a women's homelessness shelter, which is, of course, not that it's exclusive, but this is a big cause of Prince William's, with Homewards working not only in the UK but abroad as well. Harry is going to be tending an AFL club in Melbourne and a rugby union match in Sydney. And they are expected, it says Harry is expected to make a brief visit to Canberra, which is, of course, the political capital, without his wife. Very, very interesting. I mean, it seems that will be happening as Meghan's wellness retreat is happening. There is going to be perhaps a soft launch as ever. What can we expect from the wellness event? I didn't think this story was very fair, to be honest, because it's just crazy trolls online. But the Daily Mail published a story last week about trolls are threatening to infiltrate the sessions of Her Best Life podcast at the retreat. There's a major security concern issued just days before Meghan Markle's retreat. This has, of course, been happening at the 5-star hotel in Coogee Beach. The women's only event. People online saying that they are going to smuggle in cameras. They're going to be recording it. I mean, does anyone care? Is this a security threat? We know what Meghan's probably going to say anyway. It will be plastered all over social media on this Her Best Life podcast. Would you be concerned about this if you were them?
I just think that there are so many trolls. We've seen them all, haven't we, on social media? Anything Meghan does, she could do something, the best thing in the world, and she wouldn't do it right. They would still criticize her. So I think, yes, this retreat might not be everyone's bag. It might not be your bag. It might not be my bag, but it is for some people. So if they want to go and pay the money and enjoy the wellness retreat and get to have their table photo with Meghan, why should people go and try and spoil it for them? That's what I think.
Here. I mean, let's wait and see what happens. I think no doubt the Aussie public will and the broadcasters will cover it. We know that there's some UK media organisations that are going over who have been specially invited to cover it. And we will have a look at it and see what's happening as well. Let's see. I mean, there are some worthy events. I think the hospital events, Invictus is a great organisation. It is important to keep the profile up of these events as well. Now, just before we sort of come on to the Prince Andrew situation, play our game of Where's Sarah Ferguson this week, I want to speak to you about the exhibition that you went to, because a real treat to get to these sort of things. The Royal Collection Trust is releasing brand new sort of garments, I suppose, well, never before seen garments of the Queen, some of her most personal items in this new exhibition. And tell us a little about it, because it's by the Royal Collection Trust from April till October at the King's Gallery at Buckingham Palace. So yeah, what's it all about?
So yeah, this is obviously, the Queen had this vast wardrobe over the nearly 100 years of her life, and now she has passed away. That wardrobe's been passed to the Royal Collection Trust, and they've put on this huge exhibition. It's the biggest ever exhibition of her dresses, but there's not just dresses. There's the headscarves, the handbags, shoes, and obviously the hats as well, and some of her jewelry as well, on display at the King's Gallery in Buckingham Palace. So there's 300 items in all, so it's quite large, and over half of them are on display for the public for the first time. So it's this massive.
What did you think? Give. I mean, this is something that a lot of people would never get to see. I've seen, we've covered it in the Mirror over the last couple of days. There's been quite a bit of coverage of it. I mean, it looks spectacular. All these specially created items, very, very personal dresses and personal items from the Queen. I mean, this is something that we would never get to see. It is very much beyond the looking glass, isn't it? I mean, what was it like being taken through with the curator?
So I would describe the exhibition as, telling the story of the Queen's life, but through her clothes rather than in pictures and that sort of thing. And I think it also kind of reflects the history of, the modern history of Britain almost. And even though we don't really think of the Queen as this really fashion forward lady, she did actually do a lot for fashion, and especially for British fashion, because when you think about all the clothes that she wore, she never really wore, these top French design houses or Italian. It was always British, and you always think of her wearing, the Burberry and the Barber and that sort of thing. And I think it even though it's clothes, and some people might say, "Oh, fashion's frivolous," but I do think it gives you an insight into the Queen's character as well, in terms of her older clothes when she was a child, and the make do and mend situation, like you can see on some of her older like dresses when she was a little girl. They would add extra material, so they didn't have to buy a new dress every time she grew. It would just, they would just add to her clothes. And then obviously it tells a story of her life in terms of the big milestones, so you get to see her wedding dress, her coronation dress, and then some of the other really, I would say, iconic outfits that you can think of that she wore through the years. So, for instance, the peach outfit she wore with James in the James Bond
Mm.
London Olympics. So not only do you see that dress, but you also see the dress the stunt double wore. So which has been
Well, there's some. I mean, there's
yeah. So well, I don't want to ruin anyone's
don't,
illusion.
don't spoil it. I mean, if you're going to get to go, there are incredible sort of exhibition cases of all her hats, and of course, that was a feature of Royal Ascot as well, betting every day on
On the
the colour
color.
of the Queen's hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is something that I think it's now the King's tie, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
people bet
changed
on
to the
that, but
colour of the King's
it's
tie.
not the same, I don't
It's
think.
not the same,
No,
no. I
no.
suppose it's such a sort of iconic moment of Royal Ascot. But there's over 300 garments and other fashionable artifacts that will go on display. It is really interesting. I was sort of reading from the creator, Caroline de Gurat, was saying that I think that the Queen certainly had a definite sense of what suited her. She definitely knew how she wanted to appear, and we get that, don't we? I suppose with the Princess of Wales, she's kind of pushed the boundaries of her kind of wardrobe, which has been credited to certain people in the past. She definitely has help with her design, with choosing designers and what sort of outfit she will be wearing for state banquets, or whether she's attending an event with the Scouts, or just a sort of business engagement. But I suppose when you're someone as iconic as the Queen, known throughout the world, you're right, and she didn't sort of wear the French fashion houses. She definitely had a sense of her own style. We knew kind of what she would be wearing, the hat and the sort of creped jackets, and carrying her handbags. And I like, but I like the sort of sense of color and how she was involved in it as well. I mean, we've heard from her longtime dressmaker Angela Kelly in the past, talking about having to wear in the Queen's
Shoes, yeah.
shoes, um, and how the Queen sort of had this sense of her own style as well. Do you think that? What were the main personal items that you saw that were quite impressive that you probably wouldn't get to see?
So one of the things I thought that was quite impressive there was like a book of sketches by I think it was the designer Norman Hartnell, who was one of the go-to designers for the Queen, especially when she first became the monarch. And he'd like sketched all these dresses that he'd designed for her when she was going on a Commonwealth tour when she first became the Queen in the 1950s. And he'd obviously given it to her, and for her to go through and say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. And she kept it all these years, and it's still, it's on display in the exhibition at the King's Gallery. And just talking to the curator, like you say, they have these like trunks, like suitcases that they took on these tours. We know what the tours of old, where they go away for like 3 months, and like they would take
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
18 tons of suitcases and all these dresses. And Yeah, it's just incredible, like the amount of work that went into it. And also, what I found really interesting as well is like these dresses are still, 70 years old, they're still pristine. And there was, I can't remember her name, but there was a lady there, she was described as a textiles conservator. And like, yeah, they have had to do little tweaks, to get them back into good condition. Maybe just, fix a seam, or, a piece of, lace or something that's maybe come away. But they have you know retained the same style, and just how her and her staff have looked after them. And I don't think they've done anything special. They haven't been kept in special cases or displays. They've just been kept in boxes with tissue paper, or hung up. And yeah, I think that
It's
just,
incredible.
yeah,
Like, where do you even store these things as
exactly,
well? There's
yeah,
some sort of massive warehouse. I'm sure there's space in Buckingham Palace,
yeah.
but I mean, it's incredible. There's some incredible clothes worn during the many milestones of the Queen's long life. There's her christening robe,
Yeah,
which was commissioned by Queen Victoria for the baptism of King Edward VII. The dresses she wore for her wedding, the coronation. So if you do get a chance to go to London during the summer, I think that is probably a trip well worth having.
it's sold out for the
Now, of
first two
course, we will
weeks. So no, oh, sorry.
is it really? It's
Yes,
sold out
it's
already?
sold. It's Well, for the first 2 weeks it's sold out. So yeah, if you want to go, you have to.
Well, it's going to
It's
be
until
running till
October.
October.
October,
So,
yeah,
if you're coming in the summer, great
yeah.
opportunity to go to Buckingham Palace. You can get tickets to go to some of the exhibitions there as well. There will be the summer opening at Buckingham Palace to go around the corner and get into the King's Gallery. Now, before we go, I'm just going to sort of update you on Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's movements, because we see that he has eventually moved into his new home, Marsh Farm. There's been an awful lot of activity there in over the past few days, and he's finally in. This doesn't seem to have been without duress on his part. There was reports that his brother Prince Edward not only visited him before but during Easter. Some implication that the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh were not too happy because they wanted to stay over at Wood Farm, where he had been residing over the last few weeks since he was kicked out of Royal Lodge, when they were there over Easter as well. But he's out. I mean, what on earth is he going to be doing in the next few months? I suppose he's going to be waiting for the result of these police investigations. But it seems as though there is one or two sympathetic ears for him. What's been happening in terms of the sort of sibling support that we've been seeing for Andrew?
Yeah, so we've been hearing reports that, yeah, like you say, Edward has been to visit him. It was described as a brotherly welfare check. While he went to see him and Sophie went to see him over Easter. And then we heard a few weeks ago that Princess Anne had also had she's been in contact.
Popped in,
Yeah,
had
yeah,
words.
had
Yeah.
had phone conversation with him. And it seems that they are a little bit concerned about him because he's had this huge fall from grace. Um, he seems to be living quite the lonely life now at Sandringham. We do see pictures of him every so often. We've seen him, walking his dogs and driving his car, but just by himself, really.
I mean,
So
how many more of these pictures can we take? I mean, I do think it's slightly ridiculous that we see him. Oh, Andrew walking his dogs. Andrew's looking at horses. I mean, what is one for he to do? I think his disgrace is absolutely cemented.
yeah,
He is exiled. There is absolutely no chance of him ever joining these family occasions. But I think it will be very interesting to see the sort of outline of the police investigations in the coming months. There will, of course, but still be intense pressure for him to speak to US investigators. As said, we heard from the Democratic congressman as well earlier this week. He's spoken out a couple of times over the last few weeks. I mean, where does this go from here? We still haven't heard from. We might as well mention Sarah Ferguson. Was as we promised. We have still no news about her whereabouts. She seems to be lying low. Again, what is she to do? I mean, is she going to return to the UK? Is she going to try and set up home in Australia where her sister lives? Is she going to live in the Middle East? That's probably not very likely at the moment, given the conflict over there. Um, I keep coming back to this. I mean, do you think that anybody would want to read a memoir by Sarah Ferguson? I still think they would. I still think that there would be cause for that. I'm not sure a publisher would take it on just yet, but I'm still hearing that Sarah Ferguson still feels that this is a viable avenue. Do you think people would read it?
Well, I think so. I mean, she has been, inside the royal fold for however many years. I mean, there were some years where she was kind of cast out into the wilderness, but by virtue of that fact that her two daughters were, still going to, royal Christmases, Easter at that time, then surely she has an insight.
Well, we'll be bringing you up to date with all of the whereabouts if we find them about Sarah Ferguson next week and beyond. And this week, we'll be expecting some further details of the commemorations and celebrations for the late Queen's birthday. And hit us up on the socials. We're at PodSave. I'm at Russell J. Myers on Instagram. We will be preparing for the King and Queen's US tour in the coming days as well. And so, until next time.
Pod save the king!